Good evening, I am Uyane and coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. Today on Spotlight Africa, President Ramaphosa lays out plans to fix South Africa's energy crisis. Odinga snubs hags over Kenya presidential debate. Tunisian leader celebrates expected referendum win. We see in Ghana where third records of Marburg virus death, plus 5 die in big anti-UN protest in DR Congo. All of these stories are just up ahead on Spotlight Africa. Do stay with us. Following 3 weeks of the worst power cuts in South Africa's history, President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced a raft of interventions aimed at solving South Africa's energy crisis. This includes improving the performance of state-owned power company Eskom, as well as opening up electricity generation to private companies. It follows 10 days of extensive discussions with energy experts to address the country's immediate and long-term electricity requirements. The main priority is fixing embattled Eskom. The utility's maintenance budget will be increased to fix its aging fleet of power stations. Surplus electricity from independent power producers will be bought by the government and fed into the grid. Eskom will also be sourcing power from neighboring Botswana and Zambia through the Southern Africa Power Pool. Other measures announced by the president include removing red tape for renewable energy projects and offering incentives to businesses and individuals to install and sell surplus power to the national grid. Pointing to the future, President Ramaphosa said Eskom would have to coexist with private companies to ensure a diversity of electricity supply. However, the national grid will continue to be owned entirely by the state.
And we are announcing a number of interventions to overcome the immediate crisis. In the past 10 days, I've had extensive discussions with the Eskom executive management, with power station managers and former Eskom personnel. I've also met with labor federations, Business Unity South Africa, the Black Business Council, community representatives, and several experts in the energy sector. This morning, I also met with political party leaders. I'm grateful for the valuable proposals and inputs, as well as analyses that they have put forward. These meetings have helped to shape.
Development authorities in South Africa have started the formal process of extraditing the Gupta Brothers from the United Arab Emirates, UAE. After serving a formal extradition request to prosecutors in Dubai, Athul and Rajesh Gupta were arrested last month after Interpol issued a red notice for them. They are wanted in South Africa on charges of fraud and money laundering amounting to just over $1.2 million. Reports say they have been living in the UAE since they fled South Africa 4 years ago, after an anti-corruption inquiry known as the Zondo Commission started investigating their alleged involvement in massive state corruption. AJ Gupta, the third Gupta brother, is not in custody as an arrest warrant for him was revoked. He was accused of attempting to bribe a public servant by offering him the post of finance minister in return for state tenders. Meanwhile, the South African Department of Justice is hoping to charge them with further crimes related to state capture. Meanwhile, 4 suspects accused of stealing personal belongings from the bodies of the young people who died in mysterious circumstances at a tavern in East London, South Africa, have made an initial appearance in magistrate court. The male suspects, aged between 16 and 21, were arrested last week. None of them have yet entered a plea, as police are still investigating. According to an official statement from the police, the stolen items were recovered from their homes. Reports say the four allegedly stole hair weaves, shoes, clothing, and a watch in the wake of the deaths of the 21 youngsters. Meanwhile, cases of theft, possession of stolen property, and defeating the ends of justice have been opened against them for further investigation. Recall that last month, the 21 young people from Scenery Park, a township outside East London, died in the Ayobeni Tavern. The youngest was aged 13. To Mozambique now, where President Filipe Nyusi has urged religious denominations to contribute to the fight against crime in the country through spreading a message of peace, tolerance, and mutual forgiveness. Nyusi was speaking during the inauguration of the Sikwama Chapel, which he said was the largest chapel of Old Apostolic Church in Africa, with room to seat 5,000 worshippers. Reports say there are cases of kidnappings, rapes of minors, often perpetrated by close people and sometimes by the parents themselves. Still in Mozambique, dozens of jihadists have been killed during an operation conducted at the insurgents' main base in Macomia in northern Cabo Delgado province. Coordinator of North Operational Theatre at the Mozambican Armed Defense Forces, or FAM. The Mozambican army also seized a computer, material, and communication radio from Gupta base, which was considered a strategic area for the militants. Government forces also told journalists that a young man who said he worked as a security guard for the jihadists surrendered to them. Reports say Cabo Delgado has been under jihadist attacks since 2017. Meanwhile, Tunisian President Kais Saied has been celebrating his apparent victory in a referendum on a new constitution that gives him almost unlimited powers. Saied appeared in front of a jubilant supporter in the early hours of the morning, after an exit poll indicated that more than 90% of those who had voted had supported the president's plan. The turnout was as low as 30%. Saied said it would have been higher if voting had taken place over 2 days. Meanwhile, the president has promised that Tunisia will now enter a new phase after a decade of political deadlock that followed the Arab Spring of 2011. Away from that, protesters in Eastern Democratic of Congo's main city, Goma, have vandalized and looted UN forces' premises, calling for them to leave the country. The UN mission in the country, MONUSCO, is being criticized for failing to help restore peace in Eastern DR Congo in the more than 20 years that the force has been deployed to the conflict. Torn region people have been sharing images on social media of people chanting against the presence of the peacekeepers in the country as others loot materials at MONUSCO's main base in Goma. Reports say most markets and shops were closed in the nearly 1 million population town in fear of looting by protesters. Meanwhile, government spokesperson Patrick Muyaya said on Twitter that the government condemns any sort of attack on UN personnel on premises. Muyaya said those responsible for the protest in Goma will be seriously punished. Elsewhere, the New York-based Human Rights Watch says the M23 rebel group has summarily executed at least 29 civilians in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo within the last month. Witnesses told them that in a single incident in North Kivu province, the rebels killed 17 people. The suspected had informed the Congolese army about M23 positions. Others were said to have been killed in subsequent attacks in the area. Meanwhile, DR Congo has accused neighboring Rwanda of supporting the M23, which Rwanda denies. Recall that 3 weeks ago, the country's two leaders agreed on a de-escalation process in Eastern Congo. In a separate development, at least 5 people have died and 50 others have been injured